Hello everyone! The Shadowlands as a whole, they're dealing with the Anima Drought, which causes a whole bunch of suffering right here in Ardenweald. No longer can they sustain their cycle of rebirth. There are hard choices that need to be made, which groves and which seeds get to carry on, and which ones are sacrificed for the greater good. The problems of the Drought, they're supported with the stories in the side quests. Now we spoke about the side quest at the Crumbled Ridge during the story of the Drust. This area is one of the first spots that we run into, where the invasion of the Drust rears its ugly head. The Drought of Ardenweald, it has weakened their borders, something that the Drust make use of. Breaking through the boundaries, they cross over from Trost the Blighted Lands into the Shadowlands. A journal belonging to Lawor, the leader of the Grove, tells us what happens. These are trying times in Ardenweald. The unthinkable has happened. We are running out of Anima. Our stores hold, but the land is being leached of Anima. This has had an effect on a local Gorm populace. They can now gorge themselves on the very land itself. Entire sections of our village have collapsed into their tunnels, and parts of the land have even broken away from Ardenweald. For the first time, I do not know what to do. Our village is running out of time. The matriarch below has grown out of control. An entire landmass broke off the edge of the world today. It was pure chance that nobody was on it when it did so. The other leaders are discussing abandoning the village altogether. Our people are frightened. I have failed my people. I have dispatched messengers to the Court of Night and the other groves. We cannot face this threat alone, and our only hope lies with the forces of our neighbors and the Wild Hunt. I pray they return with good news soon. The worst has come to pass. Our village is doomed. All of our messengers came back save one. The Wild Hunt cannot ride to save us. No one can spare troops or supplies. I have tried to put on a cheerful face for the rest of the village, but they know little can be done. I can feel the looks of the other elders. We all serve Ardenweald, but I cannot help but wonder if I could have done more. I pray every night, hoping someone will answer. The forest will provide us with a way through this ordeal. I am certain of it. It appears my prayers have been answered. When patrolling the edge of the village to see if any new pieces had become unstable, I stumbled across a strange object. A stone, clearly not of Ardenweald, radiating with a strange power. I know what Fiona would say, but did the forest not provide this strange stone from another land? With this power, perhaps we could pacify the Gorm or even defeat them. I must not overlook this good fortune. I will do whatever it takes to save my people, my village. This might even save Ardenweald. But sadly, that wouldn't happen. Instead, the runestone allowed the Drust to infiltrate the village. Masks are placed on their victims, turning them into unwilling servants. Once converted, there is no coming back. So we save the prisoners that we can and slay those too far gone. Their leader Lawor, as well as their other elders, Fiona, Bleakthorn and Bitterfly, they have to be slain. Some anima was stored here in the village, will be put to better use by us than the enemy. And of course, that mysterious runestone is brought back to Drought and Kashmir in Tir Naval. It's very rare to find stone in Ardenweald. It reeks of hate and broken branches. This alien presence threatens the forest. The Queen will hear of a warning, but the Drust threat is not just here. It's all over the place, like a shimmerbow. This has long been a peaceful way station along the path of rebirth. The fairies there delight in revelry and celebration. But now their glade has fallen silent. Scouts bring reports of strange masked night fae, former allies taken by our enemy. There's no going back for them, so again, we'll have to put them down. While there, we also team up with Primrose, who has seen the darkness sweep over the area. Not all of the fairies have been turned quite yet, so we save those that we can, while blowing up the Drust ritual altars. Stone isn't found in Ardenweald naturally, and these altars are an abomination. When Primrose first hid away, they saw a dark shape on the northeast platform. They believe that's where the enemy's leader can be found, Ingradrift, who shows up with a rather interesting model. This is supposed to be a Drust, but they show up looking like a Botani. Later on in the Night Fae campaign, we fight them again. This time, they do have a proper model. Right here, right now, Ingradrift tries to convert both of us to the Drust side, and while we're able to struggle out of it, Primrose is not so lucky. Another fallen to the darkness of the Drust. It should be clear by now that Ardenweald is under assault from all sides, and we find Sorcha, Claw's Edge envoy requesting weapons from the Droman of Glitterfall Basin. The Lady of the Falls is rather busy with other matters, so perhaps we can lend a hand to both of them, ensure the safety of all the people under her care, so Sorcha can get back into the fights. Her gatherers at the banks of life, they feel the effects of the Anima droughts, with Gorm growing larger and more hostile by the minute. Their egg production, it's out of control, and if we don't call the population, they'll soon overwhelm the entire place. That is why we must destroy their eggs and slay the egg tenders Tium, Bloom, and Eris. Now our actions, naturally, they enrage the Gorm, and while some of the Fae were able to evacuate, there are still many of them trapped. We heal their wounds and send them on their way. But to get a grip on the situation, we're gonna have to relocate their younger ones. A big tasty totem beacon, made of wood kindly provided by the Culex trees. It makes for an irresistible charm, not just for the little ones either. The big ones would love to devour us as well. Best to avoid that fate, and with their children relocated, the banks are once again under control. They can handle the rest of the cleanup on their own. Then at the Grove Works, they've come under attack by Spirrangs, and while most of their people were driven out during the attack, a few of the elders stayed behind. Each of them can perform extraordinary works and could make the weapons in no time at all. The Lady of the Falls wants us to head into contested territory, check up on the elders, see if they're doing alright, if they need any aid. While doing that, we also make sure to slay these brittle bark invaders that we come across and get rid of their booby-trapped tools. Those darn tricksters, they've cursed baskets, harps, and dream catchers. Just picking them up, it won't do. As soon enough, our feet will dance out of control or forget what we were doing here. Shimmer dust, fret made of gossamer, and minty fresh breath. That will give us the counter buffs needed to safely get rid of the traps. Then for the elders, they're doing just fine, but they can't leave the Grove Works quite yet. Elder Finnen, they need their lucky Mela back. Grunum Kruk wants some river sediment. The waters here that carry deep power. Power that most have forgotten about, but the Tiernan forget very little. Then Elder Gwenna wants to take care of the Spriggans leader, but they've not been able to find them. They must be using some sort of glamour to hide themselves, and we're gonna need some inside information to flush them out, and she hasn't met a Spriggan yet who can resist a little game. An emote game, as the Spriggan will tell us a lovely little story. We need to use the specific emote that they're hinting at to pass their test, to show them that we're listening. If we fail, we get a little trick and have to start all over. But winning, it earns us the secrets. Their leader is allergic to puff petal powder. Sprinkling it around the workshop floor reveals our tricky foe. While the elders, they feel ready to leave the grove and make the way to Glitterfall Basin. Sorcha, I assume, will surely get the aid that they need. Now, the Spriggans are not just causing troubles over at the Grove Works. Over at the Gossamer Cliffs, they're also on the assault, halting the production of silk. In Ardenweald, they use silk for many different things, like making instruments, weapons or tools, but their supply, it has dried up. With their entire glade under assault by changelings and Spriggans, their poor silk striders, they're so stressed out that they can't produce any silk. I too cannot perform under pressure, so we help out cleaning up the glade, slaying any and all that would cause so much trouble here. The silk striders who spin the silk are very delicate creatures. They need peace and calm to produce. They need a moment to focus and a little music to keep them happy. I'm sure that many of us can relate. A broken harp is fixed up so we can play a little song and get some fresh silk. Now, despite doing our best to clean up the mess here, we can't save poor old Gertie, the brood mother of the silk striders. The stress and the fear, they were just too much for this old beastie, but there's still a thread of hope. A tiny little silk strider larva wiggles happily at us. Taken back to the heart of the forest, Gertie Jr. might one day grow up into a silk strider, as grand and beautiful as her mother. And silk is not the only resource that they use for the crafts here. And the Gorm, they're not just an enemy to be fought. By feeding the little ones, by feeding the Gormlings, we can encourage them to give it back up. What they produce, they call Gormkris, an important ingredient for their artisans and crafters. It's Guardian Coda that wants us to work together with Master Shalor and gather some of it, a task that the Master is more than happy to perform. But lately, the Gorm have been acting so strangely. They're just too wild, the drought showing its effects. We can't produce enough Gris for Coda, and Shalor would hate to disappoint them. While we bring back the little that we were able to gather, they're gonna go into the burrows by themselves to see if they could find anything more. Quite reckless, he's going to get himself killed. And sure enough, the Gorm matriarch thinks that Master Shalor would make for a nice snack. Despite the horribly corrosive acid, the master is still alive in there, so we chase down the matriarch until she has no place left to hide. While going through the burrows, we might as well gather some Gorm Chris and collapse their newly dug tunnels. We drove the beast hard enough to spit out Shalor, and in her den, where there's nowhere left to run, we confront her. Shockingly, the beast can actually speak. The Drought, their hunger, it has pushed them so far that they now started feasting on their sacred wild seeds. Those of you that have run the dungeon Mist of Tirnasaif, you might recall facing off against Tredova. They have done a similar thing, feasting upon the cocoon of Lakali, Loa of Knowledge. A story that reminded me a whole lot of Hollow Knight. But if these Gorm are any indication, Ardenweald's wild seeds are in grave danger. The forest worries, for this will surely not be the last. Yet, it is the last side quest tied to the achievement, which means that we reach the end of the video. So as always, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, see ya!